Transactions between related parties are covered by the UAE Transfer Pricing Regulations. And so it is necessary for us to identify which parties are related parties. In this presentation, I will discuss how to identify related parties. I hope you find this presentation useful. Let me now share my presentation with you. There are mainly three types of related parties. The first type is two or more natural persons or individuals, human beings. The second type is a natural person related to a juridical person like company, partnership, joint venture. The third type of related parties are juridical person to another juridical person. In this presentation, I will discuss all the three different types of related parties, and I hope I'm able to explain this concept to you clearly. As far as natural persons are concerned, related parties are of two types. One is persons who are related to a natural person by kinship up to fourth degree. And the second type is persons who are related to the natural person by affiliation up to fourth degree. Let me show what I mean by this. Now here is parties which are related to a natural person or an individual by fourth degree of kinship, including by way of adoption or guardianship. Here is the individual, the spouse, individual's parents, and individual's children. They are related to the individual by the first degree of kinship. Kinship means by birth. The grandparents, grandchildren, and siblings, brothers and sisters of the individual are the second degree of kinship. The third degree of kinship is uncle, aunt, and the children of siblings. Uncles and aunts can be from father's side or from mother's side. This is the third degree of kinship. Then in the fourth degree of kinship come cousins. All kinds of cousins. Cousins who are children of parents, cousins who are children of uncle and aunts. Cousins are fourth degree of kinship. Now let us look at this relationship from the viewpoint of spouse. Here, spouse is the individual. So in first case, it was me. In this case, it is my wife. So my wife's husband, parents, and children, they are my wife's first degree of kinship relatives. Second degree of kinship is grandparents, grandchildren, and siblings of my wife related to my wife. Uncle and aunt, and the children of her brothers and sisters. They are the third degree of kinship relatives. And cousins of my wife are the fourth degree of kinship relations. Now I come to affiliation. Affiliation means relations because of marriage. Individual, say me and my spouse, my wife, her parents are my parents-in-law. They are the first degree of the parents-in-law are my first degree of relatives by affiliation. Grandparents-in-law and my wife's brothers and sisters, they are my second degree of relatives by affiliation. The third degree of relatives by affiliation are uncles-in-law, aunts-in-law, and children of my wife's siblings. They are my third degree relatives by affiliation. Of course, this includes any adopted relatives, adopted children, etc., and guardianship, where somebody is appointed as a guardian or a parent by any court order. The fourth degree of affiliation is cousins-in-law. Then looking at it from the point of my wife's perspective, me, my parents who are her parents-in-law, they are her first degree of relatives by affiliation. Then come my grandparents or her grandparents-in-law, my siblings, my brothers and sisters, who are her siblings-in-law, they are her second degree of relatives by affiliation. Then my uncles, my aunt, and children of my brothers and sisters, they are her third degree of relatives by affiliation. Then my cousins are her cousins-in-law, and they are her fourth degree of relatives by affiliation. Now we come to a natural person and a juridical person, relation between these two kind of persons. The first is where a natural person owns directly 50% or more ownership interest in the juridical person. The juridical person can be mostly companies. It can also be partnership or joint ventures. Second is where the individual owns indirectly 50% or more ownership interest through an intermediary. The intermediary can be a company or any holding entity which holds shares or ownership interest on behalf of the individual. This is a case where an individual, along with his or her related parties together, hold directly 50% or more ownership interest in a juridical person. Next is the case where the individual, along with his or her related parties, own indirectly through an intermediary 50% or more ownership interest in a juridical person. This is where an individual controls a juridical person. I will explain what is meant by control a little later. Here, the individual controls the juridical person indirectly through an intermediary, maybe through a company. In this case, the individual, along with her or his related parties together, person. And in this case, they control the juridical person indirectly through an intermediary. Now we come to relations between two or more juridical persons. Here, one juridical person owns directly 50% or more ownership interest in other juridical person. This is a case where the first juridical person owns indirectly through an intermediary 50% or more ownership interest in the other juridical person. As I said earlier, a juridical person can be a company, a partnership, a joint venture, an association of persons. Here, a juridical person along with its related parties own directly 50% or more ownership interest in the other juridical person. This is a case where the juridical person along with its related parties own indirectly 50% or more ownership interest through an intermediary in the other juridical person. This is a case where the first juridical person controls the second juridical person. I'll explain what is meant by control a little later. Here the control is happening indirectly through an intermediary. In this case, the juridical person and its related parties together control the other juridical person. This is a case where the control happens indirectly through an intermediary. Now we come to a situation where the same person could be a natural person, could be a juridical person. The same person owns directly 50% or more ownership interest in two or more juridical persons. In this case, all three persons are related parties. Here, the ownership is indirect ownership through intermediaries. In this case, the same person directly controls two or more juridical persons. All three persons are related parties. Here, the control happens indirectly through intermediaries. In this case, the person along with her, his, or its related parties together owns directly 50% or more ownership interest in two or more juridical persons. All these four persons will be related parties. Here, the ownership happens indirectly through intermediaries. All the four parties will be related parties. In this case, the person along with her, his, or its related parties directly controls two or more juridical persons. All four persons will be related parties. Here, control happens indirectly through intermediaries. Now, let me explain to you what is meant by control. The first criteria of control is one person has the ability to exercise 50% or more voting rights in another person. This is a scenario where voting rights may be more or less compared to ownership rights. Then the second criteria is the first person has the ability to determine the composition of 50% or more of the board of directors of the second person. This happens mainly in the cases of companies. Third criteria is the first person has the ability to receive 50% or more of the profits of the second person. This can happen in all the three scenarios: company, non-company, or individuals. This is an important criteria, the fourth criteria. The first person has the ability to determine or exercise significant influence over the conduct of business of the second person. What is meant by that fourth criteria? I can explain by way of this simple example. Here, the first person is wholly dependent on know-how, patents, copyrights, technology, etc., developed and owned by the second person. Because of its dependency, person 1 and person 2 are considered as related parties because person 2 has significant influence over the business affairs of person 1. And therefore, it can be said that person 2 has control over person 1's business. This is a similar situation in which person 1 supplies more than 90% of raw material required by the person 2 who is into manufacturing or processing. Person 2 is heavily dependent on person 1. So person 1 can be said to have control over the business of person 2. This is a case where person 2, who is a manufacturer or processor, is selling 90% of goods manufactured by it to person 2. So person 1 is heavily dependent on person 2, and therefore person 2 can be said to have control over the business of person 1. These three were examples where one person had significant influence over the business of another person. This is the fifth criteria, where person 1 gives loan of 50% or more of the book value of total assets of person 2. Then we come to a situation where person 1 provides guarantee for 10% or more of total borrowing of person 2. This is also a situation of control by person 1 over the business of person 2. Now we come to the last criteria of related parties, or last type of related parties, where the first person has permanent establishment either in UAE or in a foreign country. This is a foreign P. The UAE person has permanent establishment in a foreign country. Of course, if a UAE person has a permanent establishment in the UAE, then also that UAE person is considered as a related party of its own UAE permanent establishment. And if a non-resident or foreign person or a company has a permanent establishment in UAE, then both are considered as related parties. Here we have a situation where there are two partners in the same unincorporated partnership. Both these partners are considered as related parties. Now we come to a situation where there is a trustee or a founder or a settler of a trust or a foundation. Then this trustee, founder, or settler is considered as a related party of the trust or foundation. In this case, the trust or foundation and its related parties under the foregoing criteria which we discussed. These related parties, along with the trust or foundation, are also considered as related parties of the trustee or the founder or the settler of the trust. All these three types of persons are considered as related parties of each other.